of success stories to offer to the rest of the world. One of them, of course, was the geo-enabled technology to develop an app which came very handy during these COVID pandemic days. And of course, the telemedicine I did not have to spell out. So India today is in a position to offer queues for many of its collaborators. India is also in a position to take a lead in certain ways. But for that, we are constantly endeavoring to build our capacities and also to be self-reliant so that we are able to do it indigenously without having to depend much on the extraneous factors, which the Prime Minister keeps referring to as Atma Nirbhar Bharat. And therefore, to conclude, I would say that the global geospatial ecosystem will have to simultaneously take into consideration the social factors, the economic factors, the environmental factors, and take them from a global, holistic point of view. And in turn, as I said a few moments ago, make it an instrument of market transformation in order to make it sustainable, make them also possibly lucrative means of livelihood for some of the youngsters, with the potential to revolutionize the industry and potential also to revolutionize the global economy. And as India looks forward to next 25 years, when we turn 100 in 2047, we are also actually looking forward to play an important role as an important component of the global economy, of course, in which the latest technologies like the one being discussed today are going to have an important contribution to make. So I'm sure you will have a good academic feast, and at the same time, as Mr. Stephen was thanking us for hosting, I'm sure the hospitality will not let you down, and you'll look forward to coming back to India again and again. Thank you very much.
For giving us the local framework where the global experience will bring to UNGGIM to strengthen the second largest, the country of the world for the localizations of the sustainable development. I'm extremely delighted to inform that we have a valuable message from Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. And I request Mr. Stephen Schwenfest to share that with all of us today on behalf of him.
Extraordinary honor and pleasure to read a greeting message from the Chief Executive of the United Nations, the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres. And he's telling us, I'm pleased to greet the second United Nations World Geospatial Information Congress as you gather in Hyderabad. This important event brings together experts from across government, geospatial agencies, academia, industry, the private sector, and civil society. You are united around a common quest, using geospatial data, digital tools, and technological innovation to move towards a better, greener, and safer future for all. You will share ideas and explore how integrated geospatial information can help advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We need your geospatial expertise on two fronts: to measure progress and to make progress. We need you to drive innovation and action through the power of data, focused on the most marginalized and vulnerable communities and places. That is why I welcome your theme, Geo-Enabling the Global Village, to ensure no one is left behind. And I appreciate your outreach to the next generation with a dedicated youth forum. Your efforts will also help advance the United Nations data strategy, which is designed to build a whole of United Nations data ecosystem that unlocks our full data potential for people and planet. The benefits of more timely, detailed, and accessible data are many. Geospatial information can bridge gaps, provide a clearer picture of where and how we can do better, and deliver deeper insights and smarter decisions. For all of this and more, your knowledge of geospatial data, methods, frameworks, tools, and platforms is essential. Together, let us leverage your expertise and experience for a more sustainable, inclusive, and geo-enabled global village for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Secretary General. Your message means a lot to us, the geospatial stakeholders in the community world over. Our Honorable Prime Minister is a proponent and a champion of usage of the geospatial technology and informations in the different aspects of the governance. As the theme of this year Congress, all of you know that geo-enabling the global village, no one should be left behind. It's now my distinct privilege to play a video message from our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi ji.
International delegates, experts from the geospatial sector, esteemed participants, and friends. Namaskar. Welcome to India. I am glad to be interacting with all of you as part of the second United Nations World Geospatial International Congress. The people of India are happy to host you on this historic occasion as we build our future together. It is wonderful that this conference is happening in Hyderabad. The city is known for its culture and cuisine, its hospitality and high-tech vision. Friends, the theme of this conference is geo-enabling the global village. No one should be left behind. This is a theme that is seen in the steps that India has taken over the last few years. We have been working on a vision of Antyodaya, which means empowering the last person at the last mile in a mission mode. It is the vision that has guided us in last mile empowerment at a massive scale, banking 450 million unbanked people, a population greater than that of the USA, ensuring 135 million uninsured people, about twice the population of France, taking sanitation facilities to 110 million families and tap water connection to over 60 million families. India is ensuring no one is left behind. Friends, India's development journey, two pillars are key: technology and talent. Let us look at the first pillar, technology. Technology brings transformation. Some of you may have heard that India is the world's number one in real time digital payments. If you venture out, you will see even the smallest vendors accept, even prefer digital payments. Similarly, it was through technology that we helped the poor during COVID 19. Our tag based GEM Trinity delivered welfare benefits to 800 million people seamlessly. Even the world's largest vaccine drive was powered by a tech platform. In India, technology is not an agent of exclusion, it is an agent of inclusion. You are all people associated with the geospatial sector. You will be extremely happy to know geospatial technology has been driving inclusion and progress. Take our Swamitva scheme, for example. We are using drones to map properties in villages. Using the data, villagers are receiving property cards. For the first time in decades, people in rural areas have clear documents of ownership. Most of you know how property rights are the bedrock for prosperity anywhere in the world. This prosperity can be further accelerated when women are the prime beneficiaries of ownership. This is what we are doing in India. Our public housing scheme has provided home to nearly 24 million poor families. Women are also all joint owners of almost 70% of these houses. These steps have a direct impact on the UN Sustainable Development Goals on poverty and gender equality. Our ambitious PM Gati Shakti Master Plan is building multimodal infrastructure. It is being powered by geospatial technology. Our digital ocean platform is using geospatial technology for management of our oceans. This is crucial for our environment and marine ecosystem. India has already set an example in sharing the benefits of geospatial technology. Our South Asia satellite has been enhancing connectivity and facilitating communication in our neighborhood. Friends, I had spoken to you that India's journey is powered by technology and talent. Now let us come to the second pillar, talent. India is a young nation with great innovative spirit. We are among the top startup hubs in the world. Since 2021, we have almost doubled the number of unicorn startups. This is due to India's young talent. India is celebrating 75 years of freedom from colonial most important freedoms is the freedom to innovation. This has been ensured for the geospatial sector in India. We opened the sector up for our bright young minds. All the data collected over 2 centuries suddenly became free and accessible. Collection, generation, and digitization of geospatial data are now democratized. Such reforms are not isolated. Along with the geospatial sector, we gave a key boost to our drone sector. Our space sector has also opened up for private participation. 5G is taking off in India as well. Access to existing data, drone technology to get new data, platform for space capabilities, and high-speed connectivity will be game changer for young India and the world. When we say no one should be left behind, it applies across. The COVID-19 pandemic should have been a wake-up call for the world in taking everyone along. Billions of people in the developing world needed diagnostics, medicines, medical equipments, vaccines, and more. Yet, they were left to their own fate. There is a need for an institutional approach by the international community to help each other during a crisis. Global organizations like the United Nations can lead the way in taking resources to the last mile in every region, even in fighting climate change. Hand holding and technology transfer are crucial. We share the same planet. I'm sure we can share best practices for saving our planet too. The possibilities that geospatial technology offers are endless. Sustainable urban development, managing and even mitigating disasters, tracking the impact of climate change, forest management, water, stopping desertification, food security. There is so much that we can do for our planet through geospatial technology. I wish that this conference become a platform to discuss developments in such important areas. Friends, the second UN World Geospatial International Congress makes me optimistic. With the stakeholders of the global geospatial industry coming together, with
Hello. The idea behind the theme, geo-enabling the global village, no one should be left behind, is to establish a strong foundation in terms of both knowledge and tools. Now, I will request our Honorable Minister to unveil such tools developed by the Government of India's different departments. The first one is the geospatial incubator. So,
National Remote Sensing Center, ISRO, is a center of eminence providing remote sensing data acquisition, data processing, and geospatial application services to meet the national goals. The Government of India has envisioned and announced recent reforms in the space sector of India with an aim to diffuse space technology and boost space economy within the country.
हमें ग्लोबल स्पेस इंडस्ट्री में अपना शेयर बढ़ाना होगा। 2040 तक इसके $1 ट्रिलियन इंडस्ट्री बनने की संभावना पड़ी हुई है।
Keeping this vision, ISRO has set up a geospatial incubation center at the J.D. Maitla campus of NRSC Hyderabad. The objective of GIC at NRSC Hyderabad is to foster innovations, research, and entrepreneurial activities in the geospatial technology arena. It provides an ecosystem for startups by budding entrepreneurs and facilitate them to convert their innovative ideas into commercially viable products. Startups and entrepreneurs come to GIC and explore possibilities of making geospatial more usable in building a sustainable world.
industry, please take note of this incubator. During November 2021, in COP16, our Honorable Prime Minister told that India will come out with a solar calculators, and the ISRO, the Department of Science and Technology, has developed a web-based solar calculator, and I now request Honorable Minister to unveil the same.
The solar energy is one of the most sustainable form of renewable energy, and its promotion is likely to play a major role in realization of the Sustainable Development Goal 7. Computation of solar energy potential is essential to select the optimum locations for solar power plant and rooftop installations. ISRO has developed the solar calculator for the world as part of India's commitment to COP26. This was announced by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, in Glasgow, UK on 2nd November 2021. The Space Application Center, Indian Space Research Organization in Ahmedabad, has developed web-based application called Solar Calculator for the World for calculating the solar energy potential and related parameters for user-selected location of any place in the world. Android-based app is also developed for wider usage. Both application and app are accessible through Vedas portal. The key features of the application include annual and latest monthly average solar installation in kilowatt-hour per square meter at any given location. Additional information pertaining to solar energy potential estimations such as sun path, terrain shadow analysis, historical insolation, temperature profile, and location map. It also suggests optimum tilt angle for solar PV installation at selected location. Multi-criteria interactive solar site selection tool based on 5 parameters, namely Global Horizontal Irradiance GHI, land use, slope, proximity to roads, and proximity to grid lines. It will strengthen the concept of one sun, one world, one grid, given by Honorable Prime Minister of India for interconnected solar energy infrastructure at global scale in cooperation with International Solar Alliance.
Link tool to reduce the carbon footprint for the world. Geo-enablement is all about the availability and accessibility of the geospatial data. The ISRO's Earth Observation Data Hub, Bhunidhi portal, which will be a single stop for all the public funded remote sensing satellite data access. I request our Honorable Minister to unveil the same.
The National Remote Sensing Center is ISRO's Earth Observation Data Hub, operating since 1988, having a huge repository of EO data, gearing up to the challenges of space reforms and open data policy. The Bhunidhi portal is developed for Earth observation data dissemination. Bhunidhi is a user-friendly portal. It offers features like ease in target area identification, event-driven input specifications, natural language text-based search options. The Vista Comparison Slider enables comparison of different satellite imagery, facilitating insights for change detection. Bhunidhi Upagraha is a real-time satellite tracker for EO missions to cater to the growing requirements of the geospatial industry and startups. Bhunidhi shall soon offer cloud computing environment and API-based data accesses for machine-to-machine data accesses. Come visit Bhunidhi and observe the Earth with a difference.
We say, what's in a name? But for the location-based industry, the name matters. The Survey of India has developed a custom-built transliteration engine in 22 official languages of India in collaborations with the SIDAC Pune. And my request to our Honorable Minister to unveil the national toponymy database developed by the Survey of India.
India is a multilingual country with about 1650 spoken languages. The character of variation in India is not only geographic but also linguistic and cultural. The 8th schedule of the Constitution consists of 22 official languages in the country. Survey of India is the national mapping agency responsible for maintaining the place names database of the country. A map of an area with place names in its regional language helps to better understand the geography, history and culture of that place. Under Digital India program, a need was felt to prepare toponymy database in all official languages. Survey of India, in collaboration with the SIDAC Pune, has developed a custom-built transliteration engine for all 22 languages. National Toponymic Database is now available in Survey of India portal.
All of us know that the UNWGIC has given out the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, which serves as the foundational guide for the countries across the globe in developing, integrating, and strengthening the geospatial information management. We're going to unveil a report on India's experience in aligning with this IGIF, and I'm sure this will be a very good foundation stone for the IGIF development across the nations. My request to honorable ministers to now unveil the same. And we cannot close it without thanking many people. And for officially doing so, I request my colleague, Dr. Shubha Pandey, scientist from the Department of Science and Technology, to do the, the concluding and the thanksgiving for this.
Propose a vote of thanks on this very special occasion. I, on behalf of organizing committee, conveyed my deep regards and hearty thanks to all the dignitaries and participants over here. I'm thankful to UNGGM Secretariat for entrusting India to host this Congress. Our special thanks to the National Advisory Committee for putting together an excellent program. I extend a very hearty and humble vote of thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, for his motivational speech, though virtually, but we all could feel his presence here today. Thank you so much, sir. It's a great pleasure to extend my sincere thanks to our Honorable Minister, Dr. Jiten Singh, Minister of Science and Technology, Earth Sciences and Space, Government of India, for his keynote address. I would also like to acknowledge our gratitude and thanks to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his wonderful message. I'm privileged to thank all the dignitaries cheered on the dais. I thank Dr. Srivari Chandrasekhar, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, and Mr. Stephen Schwinfest, Director, UNGGM Secretariat, UNSD, for their welcome addresses. I'm very grateful to Dr. S. Somnath, Secretary, Department of Space, Government of India, Ms. Ingrid Vanjan Varge, co-chair of UNGGM, for addressing the participants. We have been very fortunate enough to be backed by a very motivated and dedicated team. I'm very much thankful to the National Steering Committee, National Organizing Committee, Local Organizing Committee, Professional Event Organizer, and our team at Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. At the end, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the stakeholders and participants who have made all the way from long distances to be a part of this event. And our sincere thanks goes to press and media. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Dr. Shubha. So thank all of you. And we will now go for the inaugurations of the exhibitions. But before that, there are tea and coffee. So please enjoy and then join for the, the exhibition. The exhibition is actually scheduled at 11 o'clock, and we have done it before 10 minutes before that. But I think we can take the advantage of the time, and I can request Honorable Minister to come and inaugurate the exhibition.
the next part of our program. And I would like please to invite you to sit down, relax, and listen to the very interesting speakers that we have here today. We are having this plenary session as an open discussion where we will try to interact as much as possible with you, the audience. But first, I will give the floor to three very distinguished speakers. And as a first plenary speaker, I would like to invite Ambassador Akbaruddin, who will speak on the topic of supporting sustainable development and the well-being of society. Ambassador Akbaruddin, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Akbaruddin is serving as the Dean of the Kautilya School of Public Policy since June last year. This followed a long career and distinguished career in diplomacy, which culminated upon the completion of his tenure as the permanent representative of India to the United Nations in April 2020. Ambassador Akbaruddin was the official spokesperson of India's Ministry of External Affairs from 2012 to 2015, and he has the distinction of also serving as an international civil servant at the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna from 2006 to 2011. Since his retirement, the ambassador has written and spoken extensively on global political issues. And in his talk of today, he will provide his high-level and strategic insights and perspectives garnered from a distinguished career that he has had to consider the multiple connections between public policy, the evolution of technology, globalization, the geopolitical landscape, and the role that geospatial information can play in a rapidly changing world. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Speak from here.
You can speak from there. It's supposed to be an informal setting in these comfortable chairs.
Sure. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and my fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to begin on a note of nostalgia. I grew up in this very city, and it was a time when geospatial was in the realm of fiction. When Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, many in this city were very skeptical about the benefits of going to faraway space. Today, hosting the second World Geospatial Information Congress here signals that things have changed. Beliefs have changed. Space now in this city, as elsewhere in the world, is seen as an extension of terrestrial life. Frankly, space for Earth may well be the next normal for all of us. So let me start with a very mundane anecdote of an app. All of us use this, all of us know about it, and this is the app we use on our smartphones. The app known widely as GPS. It's a navigation tool. We all use it without realizing what our individual pursuits are doing for the world. It's estimated today that because of the use of GPS technology and navigation, fuel use globally has been reduced by 15 to 21%. This is just one geospatial application, which all of us use, oblivious to the bigger picture that we are contributing to. There is no other single technology in the world that helps in improving fuel efficiency, enhancing engineering skills that have led to this small app's benefit for mankind. It's the same. Let's look at another personal app that we are using, and that's the weather app. All of us use it, but let's step back and see what it is helping us in a bigger picture. We all know it helps us to know the temperature in Hyderabad or elsewhere, etc. It's estimated today that inaccurate weather predictions costs all of us in the range of $2 to $3 trillion. As geospatial apps improve, technologies improve, the losses are being cut by the day. So let's look at the new information that is coming out recently from the US National Hurricane Center in Miami while tracking Hurricane Ian last month. They indicate that mistakes in track estimates forecasts have decreased by 70% since 2000. Errors in forecasts about intensity of storms have become lower by 40% compared to just 2010. So you can see improvements in the resolution of images, the speed at which they are transmitted to the Earth, the sophistication of numerical models run by computers, all are enhancing weather prediction, forecasting information, and saving lives and resources. And this is despite the fact that hurricanes are becoming more intense, rainfall is increasing, storm surges have multiplied, and the spin-off benefit is that small little app on your iPhone or Android. What does this all tell us? I mean, I've used these mundane examples to indicate that actionable insights drawn from geospatial technologies are benefiting individuals but larger communities. And therefore, the support of geospatial technologies to sustainable development, SDGs, etc., is now fairly well recognized. But less well recognized is that geospatial data is inexorably connected to finding solutions to humanity's struggle with climate change. Because it's only from space that we can monitor the entire Earth 24/7 and very effectively. Geospatial assets help us track, monitor, and identify environmental harmful activities like, say, illegal logging, animal poaching, fires, mining, and a whole range of issues. The better we monitor them, the faster we can act, and the quicker we can stop these events. Without these systems in place, frankly, we would have no way to assess and deal with climate change in a scientific manner. What does all this mean for all of us, and what is the technology powering all of us into this dimension that we are all gaining from? Primarily, these increasingly are assets which are placed in space in what is now called the low Earth orbit of about 150 kilometers to 2,000 kilometers altitude. And there are estimates that this economy of the low Earth is already amounting to something like $400 billion. And by 2040, the estimate is it's going to be $1 trillion. Why is this happening, and what is the stimulant for all this? The first is the volume of satellites is going to increase exponentially. Today, since Sputnik 1, we have about 10,000, 11,000 or so satellites which have been put into space. Now, every week, there's a company or a country saying, I'm putting up a constellation. And the prediction is that by 2030, there are going to be as many as 100,000 satellites in space. 11,000 over a 50 plus 60-year period. In the next 6 to 10 years, another 60, 70,000 or leading up to 100,000. What's helping this move ahead? Let's look at the cost that was there in the 1960s. I understand that in the late 50s, 1 kg of cost of a geospatial satellite being put up, 1 kg was $1 million. Today, SpaceX Falcon Heavy is supposed to boast that 1 kg for $1,400. And they say that the next generation of SpaceX Starship aims for just $10 per kg. You can see how the costs are coming down. The second one is the capabilities of satellites. I understand that the capabilities per kilogram of a satellite has been increasing tenfold every 5 years over a decade now. Isn't it very similar to Moore's law about computer usage? Let's look at the computer industry and try and see what is likely to be in the future for the space industry. Computers, from mainframe computers to personal computers and eventually to handheld smartphones, there's been an exponential change because of miniaturization, because of increases of accuracy, power efficiencies, etc., processing capabilities. And today, perhaps we are at the juncture when internet apps were there 15 years ago on telecommunications. Space apps are where the internet apps were 10, 15 years ago. So if you see in the last 10, 15 years, the exponential increase of those apps, perhaps you can project what is likely to be the impact of these geospatial apps. You know, when I was growing up, space was the domain of Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer. And I don't know how many of you used to read him. As a young boy, I read. And in 1940s, I wasn't born then, but he wrote a story called Reason. In that short story, he predicted that space-based solar stations are possible to transmit energy to the Earth. Today, they are thinking of this very technology as a viable system that can be used on Earth in, according to recent British estimates, by 2040. They say the technology is available, but to scale it up will cost. So 2040, 2050. And when Isaac Asimov wrote this, everybody said, this is fiction. But as geospatial technology increases, there is normative concerns. The use of geodata during the pandemic has helped humanity enormously, and many governments pride themselves on the achievements of tracking, etc. However, it has also raised ethical dilemmas about data privacy, individual safety, consent, and we live in a world where there are vast inequities and limited capacity of many groups to protect themselves against potential harm. So therefore, any transformation needs to be based on value-based approaches. We need to understand that underlying transformation, we all have to accept some common norms. But there are many other challenges too. Space is a shared resource we all acknowledge that it is finite. No state or private enterprise, no matter how well-funded or fleet-footed, can we allow it to dominate space for its own benefit or take risks that, in fact, impact adversely on all of us? That's the concern we now face. There are mega constellations incorporating thousands and soon tens of thousands of satellites. They're planning to crowd low Earth orbit. They're claiming the right to occupy it in a manner that poses challenges to establish notions of equity, safety, competition. And yet, as of yet, we don't comprehend the consequence of such plans, plans which are already in the making or in the implementation. Are we heading towards overexploitation of our limited space resources? Just as in the case of carbon space, in climate change, low Earth orbit is finite. If we do not plan to use it for the benefit of all, can the first movers alone occupy it to the detriment of the rest? We need to think these things through. We must find a way to share these limited resources. Countries with space aspirations, but without capacities today, will never be able to utilize space if the first movers move in and occupy everything, and the rest are denied the benefits of space. And it's not only true of developing countries versus developed countries. There could be many advanced developed countries who are right now unable or even unwilling to outspend the mega constellations in the race to capture space orbits. They say that 70% of all future satellite projections will be commercial in nature. So what do we see? The balance in space, perhaps, is shifting from states, from countries to companies. Space, according to international law, is the province of all mankind. This is what the Outer Space Treaty mentions. Can we allow it to become subject to requirements of private enterprise? And what happens because existing international arrangements which were designed for governments are perhaps need to be relooked at? It's been 50 plus years since the Outer Space Treaty came into being. It looks at states, but companies are coming into being. They are major stakeholders. Does this require change of approach or a relook at things? Let me give you another example, and that's planetary scale ISPs. And I mean ISPs is internet satellite service providers. Starlink, OneWeb, they will change the dynamics of internet infrastructure. Currently, no one deals with net neutrality in outer space or across boundaries. What happens if there is a constellation? I don't know, in the future, if there is a constellation which chooses to have walled gardens, how is this going to impact information flows? Ladies and gentlemen, the ITU, or the International Telecommunications Union, regulates radio frequencies, but there is no system for coordinating orbits and global space traffic management. There are no requirements to share information, no rules of who should move out of the way to avoid collisions, and no binding global regulations on removing satellites at the end of their life. Human beings have not done a good job in preventing pollution of unknown parts of the earth, such as the oceans, Can we prevent a similar tragedy of the commons in space? It's time that we look at doing a better job in space than we have done on Earth. Space is becoming congested, contested, and competitive. Perhaps the best way is to relook the whole infrastructure, the framework, but we know that this is not the time. The geopolitics of the world do not permit that sort of a fundamental change. But can we look at small steps? Can we look at space debris as one small option? Can we look at working out space debris in a manner that benefits all? It's a threat to all. It does not mean competition. Frankly, to me, the situation in space and following it on geospatial technologies reminds me of the Industrial Revolution. There is no regulation. There is no system of checks and balances. And what happened then? We polluted our rivers. We polluted the atmosphere we lived in. If nothing is done in space, let's be certain that similar challenges will arise. And I want to end with just one request to all of you. Don't think space is too far. The Kármán line, which is considered to be the place where space begins, is about 100 kilometers from mean sea level. If you were being threatened in a place 100 kilometers on terra firma, how would you look at it? You would look at it in very different ways than you're looking at the challenges that we are now faced with in space. So we need to put in safeguards for space activity with potential benefits. And there are numerous, you've heard, a lot of benefits that are going to accrue to humankind from geospatial assets. But with these come potential risks. Engagements like the one we are having here perhaps need to focus not only on benefits, but how to manage the risks. And I'm certain several of you have been thinking of these and we would have opportunities to engage with you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. The themes of the conference, Geo-enabling the global village, no one should be left behind, were, sorry, we were looking at it from three different angles. And the first one was sustainable development. And I must say, you have opened our eyes on the importance of sustainable development looking into space. So I think it's something very enriching, because we were saying we always talk to ourselves. Now we have somebody from outside coming in and talking to us and bringing immediately a very interesting insight. Thank you very much. I will continue now with our second speaker. And our second speaker is Ms. Bethelem Desi, and she's one of Europe's leading youth technology educational entrepreneurs. When she was 23, which is yesterday, she has been named the young pioneer in the Ethiopian emergence tech scene by CNN and BBC, and she was included in the list of African innovators to watch for in 2019 by Quartz. Ms. Desi is the CEO. She's the CEO of ICOG, Anyone Can Code, a subsidiary of ICOG Labs, the Ethiopia's first artificial intelligence and robotics lab. And she's working on community outreach and research with a focus on tech education and entrepreneurship. The projects at ICOG Anyone Can Code are aimed at decentralizing, democratizing, and equipping children and youth with the necessary skills to innovate and create, utilizing emerging technologies. Mrs. Tessie will speak about how to embrace digital transformation and technological development and provide us with her insights and experiences, a leading woman in tech, how she has done that, embraced digital transformation, and how she's harnessing youth and tech in the developing world, building human capital and showing what can be done as a young entrepreneur and innovate. In essence, she will tell us her story. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was wondering, I have a presentation prepared, so if they can open that. And maybe I'll present it from there. Do you have, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Beth Helheim Desse, and I am the CEO of ICOG Anyone Can Code, or as we like to call it, ICOG ACC. So before telling you my story and starting my presentation, I would like to give you a bit of background into what our company is and what it does. So, our parent company, ICOG Labs, is the first private artificial intelligence and robotics research center in East Africa. Actually, in next April, we'll turn 10 years old. And we are dedicated in developing the frontier of artificial intelligence in research and development. One of our very famous projects was actually in India a few years back. Sophia the robot, we have participated in the development of the software of Sophia the robot. And that's one of our famous projects, but we've worked with companies like Hershey Chocolate and Sony Music and across, around the world. So, just to give you a bit of background, right? I'm sure most of you are aware, but artificial intelligence or AI is very critical to today's economy, whether you see it in trading, big data, robotics, finance, even in geospatial technologies, right? For example, most financial systems are becoming too complicated for humans to comprehend. And now AI is helping with that. We have also seen new innovations in the creative industry, such as Midjourney, that you just give it a text and it comes back with an image on an art that it has developed from the data it has collected. So AI is growing massively, right? And at the core, at the core of this development is the human resource or the human capital. And that's why we started ICOG ACC, or ICOG Anyone Can Code, which is the subsidiary of ICOG Labs that focuses on tech education and entrepreneurship. But why is this important? So I'll tell you a bit about myself. I come from a city called Harar in the eastern part of Ethiopia, and I was born and raised there. So I'm 23 years old now, but 13 years ago, that's when I first started coding. And from the picture you see here, this is me talking about computer parts back then. Thank you. I feel like there's a delegation from Ethiopia, maybe that's probably supporting me from that corner. But just to give you a bit of background, so this is me when I first started getting into computers. I first started coding when I was 10 years old, and I started coding because I wanted to make money, right? So I had my father, who had a shop. I was going to celebrate my 9th birthday, and I was asking him for money, but then he was busy, so he ignored me. So I figured, okay, what if I make the money using the computer we had at the shop? So people would come out of the shop, buying phones and buying memory cards, and then I would pitch to them, oh, let me edit some videos, put music on the videos over for you, and then I made about $90 that day. And I said, okay, this is a very lucrative business. How do I start promoting it? I've never been outside of Harar at that point. I didn't know about the capital. I didn't know about the opportunities outside. But I saw a lot of satellite TV, right? There's a lot of Power Rangers, Hannah Montana happening. And then during the ad space, they would show websites where you could buy the toys from. So that's when I said, okay, I need to build a website in order to promote my business. So that's when I started coding. And that's why we have created iCode Anyone Can Code, is to give the same opportunity as I had when I was a kid to other kids. And it's very important. Why is this important? It's because there are issues that are currently happening in the tech world. There are a lot of biases, there are not a lot of people that look like us that can speak about the challenges of these technological innovations or impacts that that have in the developing world. So that's why we created iCode Anyone Can Code. And through this, we like to call it iCode ACC in short, and through programs at iCode ACC, we are equipping the youth and young people with the skill sets of the 21st century. Right? So maybe, 10 years ago, you might not think, oh, coding is not that important, or teaching people coding is not that relevant because only programmers or software developers work on it. But nowadays, it's becoming a language that is very important to understand and know. So we have been doing this all over Ethiopia. And one thing people always ask me is that, what does the future look like, right? But we don't know what the future holds. No, I don't think anybody knows what the future holds. But what we know is the type of technologies it's being built upon. And it's very important for developing countries, especially like Ethiopia, and everyone across the world to actually equip the human resource with the necessary skill sets. Because at the end of the day, at the core of innovation and technology, there are people in it, right? So it's very, very important to have that. Let me just give you an example. For example, when the automobile was first created, there was a lot of reports of it killing a lot of women and children. And they said, oh, automobile is a people killer. But only because the prototypes or the dummies that the seatbelt was tested on was only male dummies that was prototyped in that when the automobile was first innovated. So after the improvement of the seatbelt itself and the innovation of using a female prototype and a child prototype to test the seatbelt, the safety improved, which helped more people which drive automobiles, but also decrease the number of accidents that was happening. And the only problem that I see here is not enough people, not enough women, not enough people of color were participating in the innovation of these technologies. And in order to do that, we need to equip the human resource that we have with the technologies that are present. And in order to do that, I believe it's very important to start early, start with kids, start with youth, universities, and create that synergy between governmental and non-governmental institutions, but across private institutions also. So my final message to you is it's very important to democratize access to technology and technology education. Usually people come to us, especially youth. I was talking about this issue earlier, with solutions. But sometimes what we need is education and a platform. I'll end by telling you one story. So through this program, as you can see, it's called Solve It. We had an innovation competition in Ethiopia, right? Where we give platforms and education and training to people from age 18 to 28. And one of the innovations that we saw was an Uber from milk kind of application. So after the training was provided, this person had a story. So he would go to downtown to his city and then ask for macchiato, right? Macchiatos with milk with coffee. And they would tell him, oh, we don't have milk here. we're very sorry. But he knows that back home, there's a lot of milk that's being produced and not being sold, and it's going bad. So after the trainings that were provided, what he was able to do was pinpoint actually where the milk is produced, calculate the shortest distance to collect that milk, and then send it back to the city. And after a year, after this Solve It innovation competition had happened, we would go there, and this person had already created an app that is facilitating buying milk from his village to the city. And he has bought a three-wheel drive, he has bought his own laptop, and he has started his own business. And sometimes it's not also about innovating or creating big solutions for big problems. Sometimes it's also solving your local problems, utilizing local people and utilizing local technology. And in order to enable that, we need to equip a lot of youth and kids with the skill sets that are necessary. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much, Desi. Thank you very much for sharing your story and for giving us this line of hope that anyone can code. And so there is a huge opportunity there for developing the technology that can help us make our world more sustainable. So thank you for sharing that. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. David Henderson. David Henderson is the Chief Geospatial Officer at UK's Ordnance Survey, and he's a member of the Executive Board there. He leads the continuous development of Ordnance Survey's core strategic strengths, technical capabilities, and geospatial data assets. He is an honorary fellow of the Royal Scottish Geographical Society, and he joined Ordnance Survey in 2003 and fulfilled a variety of technical and leadership roles there. He's been leading UK's delegation to the United Nations Committee of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management since 2016 and is a vice chair of the UNWGIC Europe Regional Group. And David will share his experiences and insights on the complex topic of environmental and climate challenges and how, as a senior leader and geospatial expert, his organization has rallied the world's national geospatial and mapping agencies together to encourage sustainable action, to collaborate and to commit to making a real difference in how we tackle those big challenges using geospatial data and technologies. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ingrid. Did you leave the clicker over there? So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here with our fellow panelists in this opening plenary session. Thank you, Ingrid. I feel like a bit of fish out of water this morning. The theme of the conference. No? Oh, I'm back. That's good. So I was a fish out of water, literally for a minute. And the reason I feel like a fish out of water is I'm a geospatial guy in a geospatial organization doing geospatial things. And this morning, I've been asked to talk more about the theme of the conference around environment and climate. And I think it's to the credit of the organizing committee that they're stretching all of us to step out of perhaps that classic zone that we occupy and to think very much about the value of our work, the impact of our work, and to stretch our role, in this case, as a national mapping agency. I was delighted this morning when Stefan welcomed us all to the room and talked first and foremost about the community that is in this room. And there will be a theme that goes through this talk about the work that we can do together to make the world a better place. I think from my own perspective, UNWGIC has fulfilled a really important purpose over the last 12 years or so, creating a number of really valuable frameworks which serve to help us to develop and promote the value of geospatial data, of land administration, and statistics. These are all really important context to our work. Today, we talk regularly of these frameworks being used to develop country-level action plans to fulfill specific needs in the development of our countries, whether they are fully developed and digitalized economies, or whether they are less well developed today and starting an effective journey. I think what's interesting, however, is how we start to apply that thematically in different ways. And I want to bridge the gap today between the IGIF, the work that we do, and the implications and impacts of climate adaptation and mitigation, and just give you some experiences from the work that I've been involved with and the work of my organization. I don't want to dwell too much this morning on the information which is readily available to us as to how important the climate crisis is to us today. I'm delighted it's one of the core themes of this conference. It feels like it's omnipresent in our work today. And just looking at the long-term global risks that the World Economic Forum laid out earlier this year, it's very notable that 5 of those are directly highlighting environmental implications and the need for action. Now, there are many examples, and so I share a few with great humility that there will probably be better in the room this morning, but some examples from the UK that my organization and others have been involved with, just to give an illustration of how within our own countries we're using geospatial data and geospatial technologies to help quantify, qualify, and express the implications of changes in our environment. In these examples, we're modeling the impact of surface temperature and heat, seeing that through 3 different impacts. One, just talking about the populations at risk from surface temperature increase. Another that's getting right down to individual assets and individual pieces of infrastructure and talking about the stress to that infrastructure of increases in surface temperature. And then finally, looking at the relationship between green space, environmental opportunities to develop our city spaces in particular and mitigate against that implication. Now, I think already today we've heard lots about the growth of Earth observation and space. And this is really fundamental. One of our speakers already talked about without space and without satellite observation, we simply don't have the ability to sense our planet every single day on a 24/7 basis. It's really powerful. The risk is that we don't have the context to understand that data. And I think, without bringing the rich information which exists around our countries and the world to give that Earth observation data context, then it lacks vital information as to what we are talking about in geography. So we can do that at regional level, and we can come right down to individual streets and individual buildings and relate that sense data from space, that sense data from land, and start to apply that to individual features, individual objects, and individual parts of our geography. Really important. Another example, which in the UK we developed ahead of COP26, was to build a peatland observatory for the UK, talking about the relative health of peatlands as a natural source of carbon sink, to be able to value that, to be able to quantify the impact of agricultural practices and other such things on the value of that peatland, and be able to express that in a single observatory. Now this year, and I'll go on to talk a little bit about bringing communities together, I've been blessed with being able to see numerous examples from across the world where geospatial agencies are working with Earth observation communities to bring such information together. We've seen fantastic examples develop in Australia, the development of data cubes both in Australia and across Africa. We've seen fantastic examples from across the Caribbean and many of the Pacific Island states where the relationship between climate and geospatial infrastructure is so fundamental. Earlier this year, and as Ingrid mentioned in the introduction, we chose to bring together a gathering of the Cambridge Conference. The Cambridge Conference is a network of leaders from national mapping agencies and associated partners that have been gathering in the UK, usually in Cambridge, but to some of our audience this year in Oxford, to discuss important matters as to how national geospatial agencies, national mapping agencies can learn from one another, to grow with one another, and to tackle common challenges that sits across our organizations. Ahead of COP26, we held an online virtual forum where we discussed what we could do as national mapping agencies in the response to climate challenges. And that gave all of our organizations an information note that we could work with our national delegations ahead of COP26 to represent the role of geospatial, the role of Earth observation, the role of geography at large in tackling climate change. When we came back together earlier this year, and it was one of the first gatherings that we were able to have post-pandemic, there are a lot of friends in the room this morning who attended it, we chose to use the IGIF and the three predominant lenses of people, of data and technology, and of governance to look at the various strands of activity that we felt we needed to practice in responding to climate change and taking climate action. And it provided not just a useful way to bring our own work into the room, but for us to think thematically across the climate challenge and to relate the IGIF and other frameworks to give a structure to these conversations. It worked really well. We chose to develop a number of papers as an output from that conference. Hopefully some of the room are familiar with that, and really challenged us to think beyond the what in data, but to think how data could be used, how data would be applied to, in this case, fight against adaptation or help develop adaptation and mitigation strategies, and to really understand in particular the relationship between Earth observation and geospatial data. I think it hopefully will not be the first time this week that we talk about geo unlocking the value in EO. I think for me, there were two really clear recommendations that came from the conference this year. One was for organizations such as Ordnance Survey and other national mapping agencies to take a really active leadership role as advocates for location data in our countries. In the UK, we are blessed with very many stakeholders who share that mission, but also recognize that tackling climate change is a global issue and needs us to work together, albeit that nations are affected in different ways. So we all need to be working, however, with best available national data, but to do that in a considered global context. I'd like to come back and talk to that a little bit after we play a summary of the video. So if we could play the video now.
The fires are burning, the winds are blowing, and the seas are rising. What the hell are we doing? We're in charge.
Leaders of the world's national mapping agencies are urging experts in their industry to step up, to make a difference in the fight against climate change.
So the report, the statement paper, sets out how our organizations are going to work differently in order to best support our national response to taking climate action.
It was at a high-powered meeting of the world's leading geospatial experts where the contents of this paper have been debated, then crafted.
It's absolutely essential that we are able to act as advocates for trusted and assured location data at the heart of any national response.
We really have a diverse group. There is the government and the private sector and also the academia.
How do we make this message mainstream? By sharing our infrastructure, knowledge, and data.
And that we can help to find solutions.
Anywhere around the world.
And alongside that, we need to recognize that every nation, every national response will be different.
Especially coming from a developing area of the world, that's pretty critical because the technology is there. It's having persons who have that know-how and making sure that we also have that authoritative data.
Our location data is fundamental to taking the right decisions by our nations going forward.
It's not always well understood. but bringing that to the fore is a critical part of this discussion.
We've got to champion and demonstrate the value of that data. We've got to be able to sell the benefits of using that data effectively. And as a group of nations, we're committed to doing that together. So I think that demonstrates the collaborative community commitment to taking action together. And I guess what I'd just like to finish off this talk by doing is setting out, I guess, our commitment, and then maybe inviting a little bit of a challenge to the audience. As an organization, we left the Cambridge conference and thought really hard about our own commitment to taking action and embedding environmental sustainability in who we are and what we do. And whilst the three principles at the start are very internally focused, our organization, our own awareness of the impact that we have, the three on the right-hand side start to think about how we work differently with our customers in the market, in forums such as this, and allows us to take a role to influence for better outcomes, to champion important causes, and to ensure that the value of our work is not in the production of our data, but in the application of that data against causes which are fundamental to our customers. We've published a guide of sustainability trends and location data, which we feel is absolutely relevant to our customers in the UK, but also globally, and to set out the sustainability trends which we are placing most front and center of our propositions going forward. And finally, we've looked very hard at the support that we're giving our startups and the organizations we work with through our incubator and accelerator program in London called Geovation, and ensuring we're very conscious in mapping those back to the Sustainable Development Goals and thinking really clearly about the support that we're giving them to make sure that they're aligned with our values and serving good. One last project I'd just like to share with you, and I do this at a very early stage of concept. We've been exploring some thoughts within our business and thinking hard about global problems that we think that we can perhaps make a difference to. And I'd like to share this with you. So global supply chains, particularly for commodities, are really, really important. They have impact, both positive and negative. And yet the information that sits behind some of these global supply chains, the implications of where things happen, is less well understood. We think there is an increasing and growing need for us to manage the trusted location in the assets, for example, the bulking mills, the refineries, the transport terminals, the storage, the processing plants, that sit between the movement of goods in our planet, the various supply chains that exist. Of course, many of these organizations are global organizations moving goods around. They know where these things happen, but the location information that sits behind them is often imprecise, which makes it difficult in practice to give assurance to the information which is being provided. This information is important because it's underpinning very significant levels of financial transaction. It's important because it's part of any national response to taking climate action. And it's important, therefore, that we have much greater assurance as to the information that sits behind it. Our hypothesis is that perhaps we can work together to create and compile what would essentially be a vital foundational data set on commodity assets and develop a model for ensuring that these are available and used both in the commercial sector and by governments internationally. We've been exploring this with a number of partners that work on a global basis, both those who are moving goods and operating global supply chains, and also a number of technology providers that we know that we can work with us. But there is a however within this. We can't do this on our own. We know we can provide great authority and trust in information in our own country, but we also recognize that our National Mapping Agency colleagues across the world are the experts in providing trust and assurance on data in their country. So we're keen to explore this week. Do people think this is a worthwhile venture? Is this something that perhaps colleagues from across national map agencies globally are interested to work with us to explore further? And if so, I'd love to have a conversation during this week. So I didn't necessarily intend to base a presentation around 4 or 5 words that started in C, but I think the two that struck me as being absolutely vital, fighting climate, developing adaptation and mitigation strategies, are the words community and collaboration. I think that's very much what this week is about. I'm delighted to have had the opportunity to share some thoughts at the start of the week. I'm delighted that we're talking about environment and climate as part of the theme of this week, and I look forward to learning more and experiencing conversations with you during the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. I think you've opened a whole line of ideas and thoughts. And I'm wondering if there is anybody in the room who wants to ask a question to any of our 3 speakers. Now, I don't really see a lot in this room. So if you want to speak, please stand up, and there will be mics somewhere. I think people are still overwhelmed by the challenges that we have heard from the 3 speakers. And I must say, I'm also quite impressed by the things you have talked. And maybe it's interesting to share your ideas about what the other people have said on this stage. So, Ambassador, can I invite you to reflect on what you heard?
Well, you know, I come from a very different calling than these 2 young people. And it gives me hope that I shouldn't be so skeptical as I was at the beginning, perhaps, because they come with very different perspectives and they are doers. Yes. And that's important, that we have people do things rather than people who are talking about the concerns. And these 2 young people have done 2 different things from 2 totally different perspectives. And it shows that there are great benefits in store, while people like me will continue to say, manage the risks. But maybe I need to ask both of them, what do they see the risks in their future? I see from a bigger picture that there are several risks of a systemic nature, but maybe they should answer and tell, yes, how do they see risk, how do they evaluate risk, and what are they doing to mitigate it?
Okay, so I completely understand and agree with all of the concerns that you mentioned earlier in your speech. But usually what I say about these concerns is the technology is not the problem. The people that are working on the technology are, right? So when you have diversity and inclusion on the people that are working on these technologies, I think we would have more solutions. The problem, for example, how much of the data are we creating, specifically, let's say, from Ethiopia, that are contributing to the development of new AI technologies or language developments or robotic tools? Maybe not as much as we should, right? You talked about the issue of space, and same concerns there. We're still lagging behind, but I believe with proper education and proper platform, especially with a huge population of young people, I believe people will also have people that look like us that will be able to raise these concerns and do what needs to be done. So I believe at its core, it's about democratization of access, especially when it comes to technology. Yeah.
I think that's a great answer. And I think it also starts with people. You can have all the technology you want in the world, but it's people who use that technology better things. And I think, your comment about the generation that is now entering today's workforce and perhaps even still at school today, they're impatient. They expect change, and they are not willing to be constrained by some of the things that perhaps we have been constrained by. And so I think we have got to really embrace the opportunity to see the world differently, to embrace new technologies, for sure, but really to invest in skills, invest in people, to tell better stories, to inspire, and to find ways of collaborating together and ensure that the world is indeed a smaller place. I think the talk you gave at the start, there's a really strong link between space and sustainability. Now, apart from the inevitability, I think it's, that it requires us to ensure that we use that effectively and wisely. I think you challenged us well by that. But for me also, the takeaway of the second talk just inspires us all to recognize how much can be achieved by positive thinking, by a vision to do good. And I think that's very much the theme of the conference, that we work together to achieve that.
Yeah. I really like the let's say the contrast between the risk and the opportunities. And the risk can be can paralyze if you don't take action. And I think we don't have time to be paralyzed. We have to take action. And so if you look at what you hear and what you see, to your opinion, David, what's the most promising evolution or the most promising opportunity that you see for us in the geospatial to contribute to these Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations?
I think this is what we're here to discuss over the next days. I think the biggest opportunity is in bringing information together. The world is a complex system of systems. It's complex, and I don't think solving the world's problems one another is possible anymore. And I think there's a real opportunity, not just through foresight, but through the technology that are increasingly available to us, to ensure interoperability in our data, in our systems, to ensure it's possible in practice.
Okay, thank you. So, Betelem, you talked about how anyone can code, which I think is really a nice way of bringing technology to the normal people, not only to the nerds. And so we could say anyone can do geospatial in this framework. Now, I'm sure from your experience on how you tackle this, you can have some good ideas on how this industry can do more towards the young people and bring more young people into this business, because we have a very big demand for skilled and trained people, but the first step is to be interested in what we do. Can you help us there?
So making coding is now, tech is sexy, people are interested going into it. And there are a lot of career and job opportunities in that case. But I really do believe that, the way of thinking and the way we approach things when it comes to young people, it should be different. It should be more in the sense of let's work together in bringing about change, bringing about solutions. And this is what we already have. I mean, there are a lot of developments, there are a lot of things being done in the geospatial industry itself, but to bring more youth to innovate, you have to show role models in that sense, right? Who are people innovating? Who do they look like? Or how do we inspire them? But also creating a platform that is inviting to them, right? As you have mentioned, us young people, we can be a bit impatient in terms of bringing about change. But how you approach that, how you communicate it is very, very important. And, you know, when we talk about, especially on the coding sense, it's about you have to at least understand how the machines that you're using are working, you know, not to be so far away from it. Because there's this book that I really like, it's called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And one of the concerns it has is, you know, previously the concerns of humankind was exploitation of human resource, the human itself. But now it will be the question of relevance, right? Am I relevant? How am I contributing? What's my purpose, right? So in order to solve that, we need to educate more people, bring people more into the scene, and, you know, bring what geospatial is at a very early stage, maybe still when they're kids. So starting that, planting those seeds could, you know, later on bring in a very interesting and innovative ideas for the future. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, when I look around, there's somebody. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to congratulate the plenary. I really enjoyed very much of all the three speakers. In fact, you already actually put a very nice context for all of us to take a more deep thinking how we're going to do things in future. And in particular, starting with the Ambassador Sayed Akbaruddin, actually put a very nice, again, questions, and also at the same time, very simple roadmap that how we should really go ahead with that, and not really taking very, for example, far distance when we talk about the space. And then I really enjoyed very much the lady that actually really shared the inspiring actually experience and establishment. And then David actually really made very nice, I mean, the way forward. I mean, what we're going to do and how we're going to do these things. And in particular, when we talk about community commitments and climate, I mean, I think that's very important. But my, perhaps, I mean, the question or the comment that I would like to make and would like to hear all of you, your observations, is how we go about out of our comfort zone and then engaging the other disciplines. And I think every time we're attending the session like this, we actually getting more excited. I mean, even as a geospatial specialist, we get more excited because we see how we can make an impact, how we can change to make the world a better place for all of ourselves. But at the same time, we are also facing challenges still and into engaging the other disciplines and incorporating or showcasing the values to them, and also inspiring the new generation to come to the discipline. So perhaps, I mean, if you can perhaps help us to how we can go to engage more and then have more other disciplines to sit with us into our next session of the Congress, that we actually not only having the all geospatial specialists, but also other disciplines actually coming to share with us, and then we can actually work with them because we are all part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for those nice words. And I was thinking in this idea of what's the most promising evolution. We talked about, or you mentioned already these opportunities. Now, maybe you want to give some comments on that, Mrs. Bethlehem, on what are the opportunities you see for us?
So I agree with the point of bringing different sectors, especially coming together to work, because it's hard. You never know where the cross path is unless you have the discussion, right? So we did one project actually, let me give it to you as an example. So we used satellite data to Ethiopia is very famous for its coffee. So we used we used satellite data to see, okay, how much fertilizer is needed on specific coffee farms around Ethiopia, especially on the south side of Ethiopia, to see how much fertilizer is needed to, in order, to grow the best coffee and to get the best product out of that. And through that, we saw a lot of challenge, especially young people who are interested to work both in agriculture and using satellite data, because a lot of young people are not getting into the sector, let's say agriculture. 80% of the population in Ethiopia is farming, and a lot of it is being done by, a lot of older people. And there's a problem of a lot of young people still migrating from the farms to the city to find, better jobs or better living. So in order to bring in this new generation of innovators, it's very important to communicate the application of these technologies and what is happening in the sector. I was actually looking at this serious movie when I was coming here, and one of the assignments that the teacher gave the students was write an essay about how you would use calculus in real life, right? So a lot of young people need that understanding of how these technologies are applied, why they're relevant, and why it's being done. I don't think it's clearly being communicated, and that's why we don't see a lot of people coming into these technologies. And it's not just at university levels that we need to do this. We need to do this in high schools. We need to do it in primary schools. And that way we can bring in a new generation of innovators in different sectors to come and join and, come up with innovations and solutions for existing problems. More or less, that's my 2 cents on that, but that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you've hit the good nail there. Maybe David, you want to have some comments, last comments?
Well, just a last point on opportunity, and I think it's something which we thought really hard about within our organization around 12 months ago as to how we describe the purpose of what we do. And I think picking up on the previous remark, purpose becomes really important. It's purpose which allows us to do good work. It's purpose which motivates us to get up in the morning and work with others. And we recrafted our purpose to help show the world a better place. Now that's very big, it's very abstract, but it was really clear in terms of higher calling for our activities and our work every day. And I think that for me is the opportunity we have to think really clearly, not just about what we do, but why we do it, and to set that out to businesses, to governments, to policymakers, and help them understand the value of what we can do and the impact that we can have on the world around us. But I think purpose is our opportunity. We're good storytellers. Geography is fundamentally about processes. And I think there is a wonderful opportunity for us to tell better stories, to connect the world together and help show the world a better place.
Thank you, David. Mr. Ambassador, do you have a last comment for us?
Well, then, perhaps space is without boundaries, and therefore, maybe geospatial conferences should also be without boundaries. And that is that you invite, we've heard a lot about the young. We've heard a lot about communities. Maybe there is a need to break down silos that exist in any system, because we all try and focus on areas of our coalescence. But if ordinary communities are to benefit, maybe there's wonderful stories, as everybody knows. Maybe it's good to share these stories by those who we seek to democratize these technologies for. After all, if they are our beneficiaries, they are our target groups, they also have a right to provide inputs. And maybe everybody would gain from a broader approach to this that you are already trying to foster. And I leave that thought with you that, as they say, war is too important to leave it to generals. Governance is too important to leave it to politicians. Perhaps geospace is too important to leave it only to experts. Maybe there is scope for others to join in too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, madam. Excuse me, madam. Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Aditi Sharma from Uttarakhand State Government Animal Husbandry Department. So being a veterinarian by profession, I would like to focus on the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, that is good health and well-being for all. And I would like to draw your attention to one fact, that whatever we are discussing on this platform, it is unfortunate that it doesn't reach to the ground level. Like if we talk about international level, national level, then it's okay. But if I say that I'm working with the state government, with the department, we are not using these kind of technologies to actually control or mitigate the problems. Like if I talk about some disease surveillance or disease outbreak investigation, then we are not very commonly using these technologies. So can you think of something that these technologies can be carried to the ground level in a much better way? Because if we really want to achieve all these sustainable development goals, then I don't think that if we are not practically using these at the ground level, I don't think this will serve the purpose. And another thing which I would like to ask is that whether we are prepared enough to use these technologies in controlling the pandemics and zoonotic diseases or these kind of incidences, or we really need something to do before getting to that point where we can actually use these technologies practically, feasibly, and very efficiently. Thank you.
Okay, that's a very challenging question, but if I may, as a speaker, I would like to comment on it, because in many countries we have seen that geospatial information has contributed in a large way to the management of the pandemic. And so the local geospatial technology was used on phones of people to inform them about, you have been in the presence of somebody who has now tested positive. So on my phone, I have an app that can record in a very privately secured way how I have been, who I have been in touch with. Supposedly they have a phone as well, which I know is already the first hinder. But I can see that a lot of applications and a lot of examples exist where geospatial technology at a very local level has contributed to the solution. And I'm thinking about experts on, inspectors who walk around in the field and who identify herds of disease, and this information is sent to the central office so they can have a view on the reality of where is the disease. For instance, I know that it was done in the UK for foot and mouth disease, and I know it has been done for other diseases. So there are examples, and I think you are right, they are not used enough. They could be used more. And then I want to take on to the point that the ambassador was making. We are in our silo and we don't talk enough to other people about the strength of our technology, and if you talk about them, they will say, yes, of course, but by themselves, they don't think about this. And so I can tell you that, yes, we should encourage the use of this technology at a very lower level. And when I saw yesterday the presentations of the school children doing a real geospatial project many of them were around health and around safety of water. And that's really using this technology at a very down-to-earth community level to make sure that people are having a better life, that they are having better health conditions and so on. So I think that your remark is right. It's not used enough, but I think the technology is there, and we should encourage all from our positions that we go out of our silo and talk to others about how important this technology can be for them. Yeah, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Can you put the microphone on again, please? Thank you. Yeah, now it's...
Okay. So if we talk about the human health, then I accept whatever you are saying. These apps are being used, like in COVID also. In India, we were using this kind of app, which told us that the person near us is suffering from COVID or not. But when we talk about the animal health, then we are not that far enough that we can use such apps, and we cannot ignore this, because most of the diseases are zoonotic and they originate from the animals, and that too from the wild animals. So this is one area which is still not reached to the ground level. These the technologies have not reached to the ground level, especially maybe in developing countries. Maybe in developed countries they are using, but in the developing countries we are still struggling.
Yes, I agree that in developing countries, the infrastructures and the organization around animal health are not that fully deployed or fully developed. But there are very nice examples, yes.
Just to answer yours, human-animal interface is a serious issue. And you are coming from a region perhaps where it's not used, but there are innumerable examples where they are used on a day-to-day basis. Let me give you just one small example, or two small ones. The fishermen in Gujarat state. Gujarat has the largest sea coasts in India. Every day, they tune in into some of the websites run by the National Remote Sensing Agency, and they are able to say, where should I go and fish today? This is a very small way in which this geospatial technology is helping fishermen communities. Otherwise, they don't know where to go. The ocean is vast, like spaces. So they go in there, targeted, and they were able to do. Let me give you another example. Locusts. So I'm giving you examples only of developing countries. Locusts. They were huge locust threats in East Africa and parts of India. So how were they addressed? They were addressed by using geospatial technologies and mapping it along with rainfall in different zones. And they found not only where the locusts are, but they were also able to say where they're going next. And people were told in advance that get ready, secure yourself, this is what is going to happen next. And so there are many such small ways in which geospatial technologies are helping communities which are far-flung, which have no access. They don't even know what is the basis for these information that they're getting. So all I would submit is that this is a work in progress. We need to allow things to permeate. It's not about, I don't think it's about developing and developed, because as Prime Minister Modi said, India has the largest digital setup. You go out, you can pay to a shopkeeper or even a peddler on the streets by your smartphone. I've been to many countries. I don't find that available in many, many countries. So it's the willingness to absorb technology. And I think it takes time, but we are on the right path globally and certainly in developing countries too. And you've just heard the story of this young girl from Ethiopia who is telling the world, you can code.
Yeah. Okay, I see a last speaker in the room.
Can I add a bit? No, it's here. Ingrid?
Ingrid,
I don't see where you
It's
are.
me.
to your
It's
left.
Bethelheim.
One of your panelists.
Okay.
Ingrid.
But I see the man over there was asking the floor first.
Yeah. Hey, this is Madhav. I'm from Continuum Planning and Development Trust. This is more of a rhetoric in terms of the digital divide that we have right now. We are talking about single source of truth, but then countless data derivatives that come as digital assets. And there's a lot of, whether you want to call it as a corporatization or privatization. So the data goes into the cloud, but then it's not really clear, and then people at the bottom of the pyramid are not sure, how to have the access, so on and so forth. So, but then there has been a civilizational change, when you look at knowledge, when you look at information, so you have libraries, so you can go into the library and then access the information. Likewise, if you want to have artifacts or what have you, you have museums. But then with a similar analogy, how do we foresee the data assets, in futures to see that this accessibility is really democratized? So this is in regard to the democratization subject that has come to fore. So either consider it as a rhetoric or maybe have some observations on this topic. Thank you.
It was very difficult for me to fully understand your question, I'm sorry. But if I understand well, you were asking about how to address the issue of data privatization and how to make sure that data is accessible to people who have the need. Now, maybe one of our panelists wants to comment on that?
Sure, it is working. I think both of those two questions are really important. So as a geospatial community, we always say everything happens somewhere. I think also I'm hearing that everything happens to someone. And we've talked a lot about the importance of people and ensuring that all of us as citizens have access to the information that we need in order to make the contribution to a better planet that we can make. And I think that is fundamentally important. I mean, during this week, I know I'm looking forward to attending some conversations we have about ethics and geospatial data. I think that's an important part of this conversation. But I also think we have to do more to democratize the information that we should all have. There is importance in words like accessibility, as well as openness and transparency, but it is important that we have access to the information that we need to contribute to making the world a better place. So I think both of the last two questions from the floor are related and really important.
Okay, yes,
if I might add, because I hear a lot of issues in regards to even back in Ethiopia in terms of implementing suggested tools or products on the ground level. So there's a pattern that I see, and I wanted to mention that there are different factors in terms of when it comes to implementation of solutions in geospatial or in any other technologies, right? One is, of course, infrastructure. You cannot bring in technology that uses smartphones where there's no access to smartphones. So we need to understand the need of infrastructure and how that, if that infrastructure is available. The other is the product itself. So what might work in India might not work in Ethiopia. So there's an importance of localization of the product itself. So whenever we try to implement something, we need to see how that needs to be localized. And the other one is the customer's behavior, right? Changing a customer's behavior is going to be a very, very difficult task. So we need to understand what type of behavior that this community, this village, this society has in order to implement that product. And last but not least is, of course, the literacy levels that need to implement the product. So in order to implement any product at a grassroots level or at a ground level, we need to consider these things. And whatever is being, for example, let's say being talked at conferences or being presented doesn't necessarily mean it applies. But in order for it to apply, we need to look into those things. But in terms of the last questions of data accessibility and sovereignty, I think it's very important for government and organizations to put policies and regulations in place in terms of how data the data from the country needs to be accessed. So this is a very high level kind of policy and discussion that needs to happen within every nation, I believe. But yeah, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's one of the important points that we address in the UNWGIC, is that it's not just about data or about technology, it's also about policy, capacity building, people. And so if I may conclude this session, I think we have been made aware of the fact that there are risks to what we do and that we have to be aware of those risks so that we don't make the mistakes we made in the past, like we did in Industrial Revolution. I also heard very much that it's important to engage with youth and to break down the silos. So we should not be the bunch of high-tech nerds sitting in our ivory tower. We have to be out there, talk to young people, explain them, and talk to them on their sense of purpose and tell them what the purpose is of what we do. And I think the most important message is that we have to do something. We cannot sit back and ask who will save the world. The question is, how will we contribute to save the world? And with those words, I'd like to conclude this session. Thank you very much for our three distinguished speakers. And I would like to move on to John Kedar.
Hello. Excuse me, ma'am. I had just one small observation, if you permit.
Well, I'm sorry, we have to close down. The timing is pressing us, but I invite you to share your comment with the speakers in the coffee break or at the lunch break. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. And thank you all for staying through that very interesting session. And we've now got 15 minutes before lunch to look specifically at something called geospatial knowledge infrastructure. Now, what did we hear in that last session? Well, from David, we heard about the global challenge of climate change. And at the other end of the spectrum, we hear about small-scale farmers needing to double production to hit SDG target 2.3. Double production, small-scale farmers. Now, they're not going to do that through automation. But both of those challenges have one thing in common. It's not data alone that we need, it's knowledge, it's understanding, it's answers. And that's going to come from a far greater variety of technology providers, a greater variety of industry than just data alone. In Yemen a few years ago, using predictive technologies, using geospatial data, using data about weather forecasting and other data about the country, we were able to predict where cholera was going to break out or likely to break out in 3 years' time, and then take the necessary preventative measures and completely reduce the incidences of cholera in Yemen. That's knowledge. That is geospatial knowledge. Autonomous vehicles driving around in our streets one day, they're making decisions. The machines are making decisions, not humans. Those machines need to take all this data, the algorithms that they are served with, and come up with machine knowledge, geospatial knowledge to help those automated vehicles do their job. And that is really geospatial knowledge. And geospatial knowledge infrastructure has been developed specifically to help us look beyond data to the knowledge that's necessary to make decisions, whether human or machine. And that geospatial knowledge infrastructure incorporates not just the geospatial data community, It incorporates the applications community, that much wider tools and applications community. It brings industry firmly into the fold because they're the ones creating many of these applications and tools. It requires governments to integrate policy, not just separate geospatial policy, space policy, and data policies, but integrate these policies together so that we can really have strength in our knowledge environment. It requires absolutely partnerships across industry, between industry and government, academia, and so on and so forth. And it really requires us as a geospatial community and what we do to be part of mainstream digital. We provide the glue, we provide a real part of what is happening in that wider digital ecosystem to deliver knowledge. Now, I'm going to ask for a short video to be played. You've heard enough of me, so if we could have the video, that'll tell you a little bit more about GKI and the program. Video, please.
Geospatial World and the United Nations Statistics of Geospatial Knowledge Infrastructure, GKI, in world economy, society, and environment. Over 3 phases, the project aims to nurture an enabling environment and develop strategies for making fit-for-purpose geospatial knowledge accessible on demand for use cases across sectors, thereby supporting sustainable development. We take pride in releasing the report, Geospatial Knowledge Infrastructure Readiness Index and Value Proposition for World Economy, Society and Environment, which is the culmination of Phase 2 of the project. The report consists of dedicated sections on the value proposition of GKI for 8 user sectors: agriculture, construction and infrastructure, logistics and supply chain, cities, public safety and security, autonomous driving, land administration, and energy transition. The report also encompasses the GKI Readiness Index, which provides a framework to enable stakeholders understand the strengths and weaknesses of their national geospatial infrastructure and identify opportunities for better co-creation of geospatial knowledge. Grab your copies now.
How did we start this journey? Like all good ideas, it needs co-conspirators. And our 2 co-conspirators that I'm going to invite on stage with us are from the United Nations Statistics Division, the director of UNSD, Mr. Stefan Schweinfest, and Mr. Sanjay Kumar, the Chief Executive Officer of Geospatial World. Sanjay, Stefan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. I'll get you in a second. And I'd also like to invite up on stage those partners that are with us, that have been involved in this project and supported it over the last 2 years, and Dr. Shivangi, who has directed the project over the last year, and Mr. Greg Scott, if he's in the room, who has been the UNSD representative. So if you could all come on stage with the project team and come and join us up here, that'd be great. Don't be shy. And this started with the signing of an MOU between Mr. Stefan Schweinfest and Mr. Sanjay Kumar back in 2020, as we saw on the video. And what I'd like to do, as soon as our partners are on stage, is to hand over to Mr. Stefan Schweinfest to say a few words and to release the report. So thank you, partners, for coming up. David, good to see you back on stage again. Great. Last one's coming up. Okay, so Stefan, if I could ask you perhaps to come to a podium and say a few words.
Let me do it right from here. I know I'm standing between you and your lunch. That's a very uncomfortable position to be in. So let's keep this very short. Thank you. Sanjay has been, and geospatial world has always been, played a very special role in what we are doing here at the UN. And we already punished him 4 years ago with an ambassador award that almost caused cardiac arrest. And I remember that moment, and it was a lot of fun. But I mean, he has, if anything, he has helped us more to establish the partnerships, to connecting the dots, especially public-private partnerships. And this is one of the results here that we are holding in our hands here, this product. And I think I'm very excited about it because it has a couple of elements that are important for us. First of all, with our IGIF, many of you know we are at a point, at a crossroad in the UNGGIM where we need to go from discussions and methodologies and so to implementation and action. And for that, we need to understand what's going on at the country level. So this is it's a diagnostic tool also. So this is very exciting. The index breaks it down for countries to better understand their geospatial readiness. And I think it's a good start for a discussion, and it helps us to formulate our action plan. So I mean, I like the analysis for the user sector. This is very, very interesting, and again, breaks it down. So in that sense, this is a very helpful tool for us. Some might find the index a little bit provocative. I sometimes myself have problems with an index, but it is an advocacy tool. And if it gets everybody thinking, discussing, and reflecting, that's exactly what we want to do before we go forward. So please grab your copy, look at it, and start discussing it among each other and with all of us. And that's exactly what we want to achieve at this point. And I wanted to thank Sanjay and his team and everybody here on stage who has made significant intellectual contributions that we got to this point. Well, thank you very much.
Now we can release it.
And are we doing a photo? Right, a photo, please, of everyone unwrapping, unbinding your copies and holding them for the cameras. Okay, now please remain on stage holding the pose for slightly longer while photographs are taken. You can get your copies from the GKI booth, which is in the exhibition area, or on the program website. The program for this very session now, if you click on the link there, that will take you through to be able to download it digitally. And there are some additional sessions about GKI during this week. There's one this afternoon in one of the parallel sessions. And there's a GKI special session on Friday afternoon where you can learn more about GKI. What I'd like to do now is hand the floor to Sanjay to close, if I may.
Thank you very much, John, and this is a great honor to be part of this very important initiative. Everything has a location, and the discussion about GKI started in Rome, and that was over a cup of coffee and series of coffees that took to get to start on this. As you would have heard a lot in last couple of years, and especially yesterday, today, about sustainable development goals. So how do we actually make that difference? We make that difference and we achieve that through application of these technologies in fundamental industries, be it energy, agriculture, transportation, defense, any of those industries which are fundamental pillars of economy and society, and geospatial plays a role in this. And the GKI Readiness Index actually aims at two things. One is talking about transformation of national mapping. National mapping is very important. If you heard about a new report on 3D nation by United States government, that's the way you're looking at making your nation as a 3D nation. In the digital interface, geospatial provides the kind of connectivity and a spatial dimension to how do we deal with digital infrastructure and digital age. So it's very important and connected environment. And to do anything which is holistic and ecosystem approach, you need to look at an ecosystem approach. And that ecosystem approach is nothing but hundreds of determinants which actually come together to play that role. And that's why the readiness index is so important, to look at holisticity of our preparedness strategically, as well as delivering those services on the ground and being part of the community, which we just heard from the panelists, that how important to reach out to those industries and those people who are going to be using this technology. This booklet and this report is all about how to make use of this technology across industries and how to prepare our nation better. Thank you very much and have a good lunch. Thank you very much to everyone.
Festive season आ गया है. Get ready to look picture perfect with Urban Company Salon at home.
Geospatial knowledge is underpinned in almost all economic sectors that are of national priority for governments worldwide. Technological innovations taking over and transforming the business processes have created new avenues for geospatial applications, innovation, and growing need for collaborative workflow in various business processes for the benefit of different sectors. With the changing geospatial industry landscape, there is an increasing need to collaborate and integrate data and solutions for efficient use of geospatial technologies for geospatial economy growth. And these collaborative workflows lead to significant business model transformations within the geospatial community. Let's hear out from our plenary speakers on how geospatial knowledge infrastructure and collaborative workflow is evolving to advance sustainability. What are the business models that will drive their business in the future? And what kind of collaborative workflows are they focusing on?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ron Bizio, Senior Vice President with Trimble, and I've been really looking forward to this all day. Thanks, everyone, for coming back. It's great seeing all of you. Obviously, the title of the session is Geospatial Knowledge Infrastructure, Advancing Sustainability Through Collaborative Workflow. And we're going to broaden that to be a general addressing collaboration and the role of collaboration. We have industry, we have national mapping agencies, we've got a great panel. I'm looking forward to this. We've got 90 minutes, and we have what I think the mix of a great session. We've got a really compelling topic. It's extremely important, and we have really engaging industry experts. I've been on panels with just about everybody on this panel, I think. Maybe Thomas, you're the first time, and Ingrid, first time, but I think everybody else, I've done this before. So this is gonna be a good one. This is you get to enjoy yourselves. My challenge will be keeping everybody on time. So that's how we're gonna work this. You know, I think Jack Dangerman started the day off challenging us to collaborate. And I think that is really one of the things that's most important when we bring industry, academia, government together, NGOs. It's bringing that collaboration together. And the goal, as Jack talked about in his video, is really important. You know, there's a lot on the line here. So I was reflecting on this topic of geospatial knowledge infrastructure, and I was thinking about how obviously this is an engaging topic. It's something that's incredibly important for everyone as we drive sustainability, work on improving equality, equity. These are all really important things, and the GKI, or the Geospatial Knowledge Infrastructure, has an incredible role in enabling that. We as geospatial professionals have an important role in that, and I'm looking forward to hearing the panel's view on that. The second thing, which is a personal interest of mine, I actually believe that geospatial knowledge infrastructure has the ability to inspire. And who we really need to inspire is the next generation of geospatial professionals. We want students, children to choose academic careers and moving into the industry. Our industry needs young geospatial professionals to come in. And I believe that the geospatial knowledge infrastructure can inspire that next generation of professionals. And I'm looking forward to hearing members of the panel talking on this. And I know there's a lot of passion for that topic up here on the podium. So with that, I would like to make some quick introductions. Given the group that's up here, I could spend the 90 minutes on introductions, so we're going to be very brief. Starting over here, Dean Angelides, who is, sorry, I lost you there, Dean. Dean Angelides, Corporate Director for International Relations at Esri. I've seen you in probably every airport I can think of on the planet. It's great. It's great seeing you. Next up is Greg Scott from UNWGIC. He's a Secretariat for UNWGIC out of New York. Nigel Clifford, Deputy Chairman, Geospatial Commission for the UK. Alain Datai, who's the board member for TomToms. This is a home game for Alain. His office is just close by. So, Jim Van Rens, who is one of the hardest working guys in the LiDAR industry for Regal. And Jim, again, also a road warrior that I've spent a lot of time on the road with. Tomas Petek, who's the Director General of Surveying and Mapping Authority for Slovenia. Welcome. Nice. And then finally, definitely last but not least, welcome to Ingrid Vandenberg, who's the Director for National Geographic Institute in Belgium. So welcome. All right, so why don't we start with some opening remarks, and then we'll have a couple of questions, and then I believe there's microphones, and we'll jump into questions for the panel. With that, I'm gonna work from the inside out. So Nigel, if you don't mind starting.
Thanks, Ron. A big topic. So I thought the way I'd approach it is just talking quickly about what the Geospatial Commission was set up to do, what we're doing, and what we think we've still got to do. So initially, the Geospatial Commission was sent up to encourage collaboration around what we call the Geo6, which were the big 6 data holders from the geospatial perspective inside government. So Ordnance Survey, Geological Survey, Hydrographic Office, Land Registry, etc. So we've been working across that team in terms of policy making, but critically thinking about the geospatial knowledge infrastructure and the pyramid, looking at data. So we've been around for 3 years, and so for the first couple of years, it was very much around FAIR, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But also we added quality to that. So what's the data that's sitting inside those reservoirs actually look like? And we've issued a report, which was a slightly tense time because no one likes to have their homework marked publicly. But we issued a report on the state of that data. And in general, cut to the chase, the interoperability was the piece which needed improvement. So we've then taken another step, which is looking at, okay, how do we encourage that? So data improvement programs, which we funded, making the use of data keys, so unique property reference numbers free, so that people can now utilize those. So that's kind of sorting out the base level of the pyramid, the data. But then we're also looking at, well, what's stopping that being used and cascading upwards towards kind of knowledge and then wisdom? And so we've been looking at kind of the other end of the telescope, which is the users. And oftentimes we were looking from our end of the telescope, which is providers. And I will provide you with a data set. And then it's kind of up to you to find the other data sets which you might need to solve your use case. So we've picked on a few use cases where we've done that work for the industry. So particularly housing, property, infrastructure, creating repositories of housing and infrastructure and property data, land use, and then we're creating a whole new data set around underground assets. So we've got 4 million kilometers of pipes, 4 million holes being dug every year, and 4 million surprises as those holes are exposed. So we thought there must be a better way. So we're encouraging now collaboration, not just within government, but also with the private sector. So getting electricity, waste, gas, telecommunications to collaborate in exposing in a safe and somewhat shrouded manner their assets sitting under the surface. And then final couple of points before Ron hits the gong is we've also thought beyond the data because there's a couple of other things which could stop the evolution of the use of that information. One is ethics, and the other one is skills. So on ethics, we've started a conversation with the public around location data and the use of it. So what are the keep off the grass moments in terms of my data, my identity, and where is it that you're very happy for that data to be exposed? So we've now published the first round of that report, and I guess it was somewhat predictable, but we've now proven it that if you took a poll of people in this room, I guess we would say, if the information is for the public good, for planning facilities, for emergency uses, please use it. If it's for my use or my good, then please use it. But if it's just purely for profit, not so sure. So putting that then into a set of policy guidelines is going to be a very delicate task. But that's really the next step for us, thinking through how do we get not just the producers of data happy, but also the co-producers of data who are almost accidentally contributing data. Then the final point, which just a very quick one, is skills. So all of this is very interesting, but if there's no one there who can mill the data, interpret the data, repurpose the data, then that's a challenge. So we're also looking at the skills availability across the UK in particular. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks for kicking us off, and thanks for staying on time. You make it easy for me. Thinking about something that maybe you'll think about for when we get to the question and answer, I'd like maybe you to elaborate on security and some of the security aspects of the data, how we secure the data as we start to do things like utility data and bring in things like that. Maybe think about that one. Over to you, Alon.
All right. The need for collaboration is actually pretty much driven by the availability of data. And over the past 10 years, at least, we have seen a proliferation of sensors in all kinds of products, not in the least in consumer products. Now, A very good example of that, which you all know, is a GPS sensor. Right? The GPS sensor not only has allowed us to create navigation applications, but it also allowed us to really capture what is happening on our road network. And I want to give you an example of that, just to make clear what kind of collaboration I'm talking about. It's collaboration between the users of those sensors, which in this case is the car industry, fleet systems, but also more recently mobile phones. Right? And so if we look what we get today in as TomTom, we get 61 billion GPS data points per day. Now that doesn't ring a bell. I mean, it's a massive amount of information coming from 600 million different devices. And that can only happen when all those sources of those information decide to collaborate and to make sure that that information ends up in one production of knowledge, new knowledge, which can be used, first of all, to have real-time traffic, which you have on your phone, which you have on your navigation, but much more, you can actually do all kinds of analysis. And just to give you a teaser what that means, those informations, I want to show this video if it plays.
My name is Rhonda Hughes, and I lead global content, social media, and customer advocacy at Zoom. If I were to describe myself, I would say mom, first and foremost, to two sweet little boys. I'm also a connector of people and ideas. As a manager, I think my role is to support my team. Originally, when we started looking at Grammarly, it was a very tactical thing we're trying to solve for. I needed to make sure that everybody was on the same page when it comes to terminology and brand voice and tone and everything in between. We quickly saw Grammarly Business actually had a lot more than just spelling and grammar. I could see how this would help me solve some of those other problems that I had in terms of keeping the entire company on message, on tone, talking about the right terminology.
Grammarly Business helped us build in style guides, messaging, brand terms, things we really wanted to include in all of our content. My name is Matt Torman, and I lead content marketing at Zoom. I grew up in journalism. I was a copy editor on a copy desk and really had some good mentors, helped me understand the value and the power of words. My role shifted as Zoom grew, and we had to really prioritize content at scale, educating new users, new audiences, new regions on the use of Zoom and the platform and the value that it could bring to their organization.
I'm Allison Coleman, and I'm the Senior Social Media Content Specialist here at Zoom. Tone detection helps me make sure I'm staying friendly and the post sounds exciting and not too serious. It just helps me put things in an active voice and shorten up and only include things that really need to be in that sentence. Grammarly Business has helped me capture attention in that split second when someone's scrolling through their feed. I think it allows me to be really creative.
Grammarly Business really is an extension of our team. Our team has received more than 10,000 style guide